The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, The Believer. So this, of course, is our penultimate episode of the season. I don't know where I was going with that, but penultimate episode of Season 2, and it was okay. This, I think, was officially that episode. Every episode, I'm like, that was amazing. That was great. The next one can't be as amazing. And I've been proven wrong every time until right now. This was not like an amazing holy crap episode. It did have an amazing moment in it for sure. Like what they did with the Mandalorian character, like with Din Djarin, was great. Like his character actually went through a pivotal moment that, without a doubt, is like one of the most important things he's ever done in the whole series. But the episode as a whole is not going to stand the test of time. Like, holy crap, that was just like ridiculous and over the top and amazing and stuff like that. And it had the potential to be. And I think it's just the fact that the fight wasn't as epic as it could have been. It felt normal. It felt simple. It wasn't that it felt normal. It felt like it was a simple fight. Like I felt like, considering what he can do, and especially considering how many people there are coming at him, during that scene, I feel like they could have done way more with that, and it just seemed so simplistic. Like they had like one little moment where I was like, okay, it seems like things are about to kind of spark up a little, because in the very beginning of that fight, like he punches a guy and he's about to block. He does like his classic move where he blocks with both arms, but because he's not in his Mandalorian armor, like he's thinking like, oh, I got my Beskar, it'll just boom, it'll pop off, because he's been doing that so much. Like we watch him, like every time he fights now, he'll just put his arm up like it's nothing, or he'll literally lean into a hit because he's like, well, I got my helmet on, like in the season premiere. The dude's about to punch me, I'll just do this, and he'll just punch, something that's tougher than a brick wall. So it's like he uses his armor as he fights as a weapon for him. So when he blocked and it like went through, because he's wearing that BS Stormtrooper armor, you could tell he got hit, and it was like, oh crap, that's like his classic move, to be like, I'm gonna block this and then I'm just gonna go, because typically it's just like, all right, all he gets is like the force. Like he doesn't feel any physical pain because it's hitting his armor, but it's like, okay, it pushed me back, but I'm just gonna go like this and then just push him off, and then I'm gonna keep going. But instead it like shattered on his arm. It's like, oh crap, I'm wearing this garbage stuff. So he got hit like a couple of times. Like even at the end of the fight he's tired, but even with all of that, I didn't feel it much. It was like, okay, that first part I was like, okay, this is gonna be a tough fight for him, but then it was a normal fight. Like he was beating everybody up and everything was fine, and I expected him to win. It's not like I thought he was gonna lose, but I felt like the tension was literally only there in that very ending part where he actually got held down on the ground. Like there wasn't a big part where I felt like, he was actually taking a bunch of hits. He definitely took hits like throughout the entire thing, because it was actually a long fight scene, and maybe that's a big part of why it was like, oh, this really feels, man, for such a long sequence, it doesn't feel like much cool is really happening. Like he threw some cool punches and stuff like that, but nothing felt like truly bombastic to me. And it was just like, oh, I felt like we were about to get a glimpse of him kind of switching up his fighting style. Like he did like a little, he like sweeps the leg and stuff. And I was like, okay, we've never seen him do that before, because typically he's decked out in his full outfit. So he's got Beskar armor on and he's got a cape. You probably shouldn't be doing like little low to the ground spin kicks and stuff. But he can't do that because he's a good fighter. And I was like, I would love to have seen him really change up his style, because like now I actually have to dodge and stuff. But it seemed like he was fighting kind of the same way he always fights. And it was like, okay, well, I was kind of hoping for like just a little bit of extra during that fight sequence, but ultimately he was just beating everybody up. They would throw a thermal detonator at him, he threw it back. The scene at the end where he does actually get knocked down, he ends up taking those two people out. Apparently the dude set the timer on the thermal detonator to max, because he was like, he set it down. I'm like, okay, he beat the two people up. I'm like, there's not enough time. They're gonna have to like jump off of this truck, and then that's how the scene's gonna end. Then they have to find their way up, to the base. But instead, he beat them up. It was fine. He had more than enough time. He walked over to the thermal detonator too. Like he didn't run. He was like, all right, I got them. I'm gonna walk over. And I guess you could say that was a part of him being tired. But he like strolled over and picked it up and was like, here you go. And he just threw it back, and then he blew up. I think that was the second like set of things that he blew up, because the first time he shot the dude with the thermal detonator, and that blew up the first couple of ships, and then he threw the other one and killed those guys. So then it was like, okay, there's another set. It was basically just like it was like a video game. He was fighting them in waves, but it was like video games where they fight you at one at a time, which they also do in movies. And so it felt like that, and I was just like, it just feels too slow paced for how cool of an action sequence this could be. They had him run out of energy in the gun, which I think I've seen that before. So I'm pretty sure that is a thing in Star Wars, but Star Wars kind of handles it like most movies do, where you just never see anybody reload. It's kind of like that, because I'm pretty sure I saw that in, I want to say, Star Wars Rebels. You don't see it a lot. I definitely feel like I've seen it before, and I could be wrong, but I feel like I've seen it maybe one or two other times, like ever in like everything I've ever seen in the Star Wars. Like the blaster actually running out of energy. So I was like, okay. So he does that. He has to toss the gun, and then the hand stuff. But it was just like, this fight's not that epic to me. Like, I know it was meant to be cool. And it's like, oh, Bill Burr's character, he has to like, make sure he's not going too fast. He has to slow down, so that's why they're able to catch up to him and stuff like that. But I was like, maybe it's just because he's not in his Mandalorian armor, so he doesn't get to do anything that's like super duper epic. But they could have still done it with the hand-to-hand combat because he's already such a prolific fighter. They could have done it. Like I said, him switching up his style just a little bit since he's, he doesn't have the cape, he doesn't have the armor, so he's not weighed down as much. He's technically allowed to move a bit faster. He's able to do stuff where he can do like a low sweeping kick and move in a different way. And I was like, man, they could really dive into that in this fight, and I felt like they didn't. So it gave me hope for something, maybe down the line we might get to see that if there's ever another point where he has to take off his armor to do a mission. I feel like they could really dive into that just to see him fight in a different style, and I think that would be really cool because I feel like he could do it. And I was kind of hoping, I was like, oh, I thought, I felt like that's where we were going when it first started, where it was like, oh, he's taking these hits because he can't just use his armor as like a deflection tool like he normally does. So it was there like a tiny bit, but like I said, I feel like it didn't really like kick in as much as I was kind of hoping it would. So it was kind of like, okay, it's a cool fight scene, but that whole sequence, I was just like, yeah, this episode isn't really getting me. And that was the action sequence, and that's kind of what made me realize, I was like, okay, so far not much has happened, but this is like the first big moment. And they have two. They have that sequence and then of course the end shootout. But that first one, I was just like, meh. And it just didn't do much for me. The ending was great because, of course, seeing TIE fighters come in is always amazing. So they do like their super quick, tiny sweeping run. So I was like, I love that. That, of course, visually looked great. I like the aspect of them going into the Imperial base and like all the stormtroopers are like, cheering them on and saluting them and stuff. I like that just for a story perspective. Like, oh, it's cool to see that side of the Empire. Whereas, like, that's basically, the same as if you went into a Rebel base. Like, oh, you took out, this last TIE fighter or whatever, and you made it into the the Rebel camp, and it would be the exact same thing. It's just like your friends cheering for you, and I just thought that was cool to have that element, from technically the villains of the Empire. So I thought it was super cool. I like that little quick moment, and then of course that leads to what was the big moment of the whole episode, which was they have to have someone scan their face at the machine, and Bill Burr's character is like, I used to work for that dude. He might recognize me. I'm sorry, but we have to go. And it's like, it has to be a face scan, so you can't take off your helmet and stuff, which they talk about earlier where Bill Burr has this big moment. And I wish I could remember his name, but it's just Bill Burr's character. But, he's having that big speech like, as long as you can sleep at night, I say you're doing better than most people. And, he asked him about the rule, like, so can you not take off your outfit or can you not have people see your face? Because there is a huge difference, in that, which is definitely true. So I thought it was really cool. I like the way that was handled. And, he ultimately is like, it's his son, especially with that ending speech he gave where he turned Moff Gideon's word back on him and was like, that's his baby boy. So, he took his helmet off, they scanned his face, which they didn't show in this episode. When he did that speech at the end, I thought they were actually going to be like, you need to see this, and it was going to be his face. Because I'm like, they scanned his face. I think season 3, regardless of whether or not they actually kill off Moff Gideon in this next episode, I think season 3 is going to be like the Mandalorian is the enemy of the new Empire, which Boba Fett has a comic book called Boba Fett Enemy of the Empire, and I was like, they could totally do that with the Mandalorian now, because his face was scanned. They, of course, when they do that escape, they end up blowing up that base. So it's like, okay, this base was blown up. We have the Mandalorian coming after us. I think they're going to realize this when they get on the ship. Is like, how in the world did they find us? How did they get the schematics for the ship? All this stuff. And they're going to be like, well, this place was blown up. Somebody went to get those schematics. And then they're going to look into it and they're going to see his face got scanned. Because I thought it was weird. First off, your face doesn't have to be registered with the Empire. You just can't be wanted by them. Because it was like, okay, well, obviously Cara Dune can't do it. Because it's like, I've worked for the Republic. It's going to be pretty easy. Ming-Na Wen's character, who I believe her character's name is Fennec, if I'm not mistaken, she was like, yeah, I'm wanted. And then they look at Bowman and is like, let's just say they'll recognize my face, which I thought was really funny. I was like, that's a good Clone Wars reference. So I thought that was really funny. I was like, they'll recognize my face. So you don't have to be registered already with the Empire. You just have to not be wanted. So now that they have his face, I feel like that's what they're going to do for season 3, because they could escape. They could kill Moff Gideon. I kind of hope they don't, because I feel like we haven't gotten enough of his character yet. So, season 3 could genuinely be like, everyone was looking for Grogu. Now they're going to be looking for him. They'll probably put a higher bounty on his head than they would for Grogu. just because of whatever ends up happening in this next episode. So they're gonna have his face, and I thought for sure that's what they were showing us at the end of the episode. Like this, they wouldn't know who he was because obviously he's never taken his mask off. So they wouldn't know what he looks like, but they'd be like, that's at least someone that we can target. And then they could probably get some information off of that and probably, go through some of the Mandalorian stuff. And they'd probably find him because of that, just because in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure they could get the information on his face because somehow I'm sure his face is registered somewhere. But they didn't do that this episode at the end. It was the cool speech. But that's what I thought they were going for. I was like, you got to see this. And I'm like, they're going to have his face because that just makes sense. His face was scanned. It's saved somewhere. But scans his face. The Imperial guy comes up and, he's talking to him. And then, of course, Bill Burr has to come in, kind of rescue him and stuff. It's like, oh, you guys are the ones that you were the only ones that made that shipment. Why don't we have a drink? As soon as they sat down at that table, the episode, kicked up a couple notches. Because that tension was exactly what I was hoping for in the episode. And I wish it lasted longer. I wish they couldn't just, hop out the window. I wish they had to go through, some corridors and stuff. And the chase was a little bit longer. But I love that scene. As soon as they sat down, I'm like, this is going to be bad because and just the fact that, he's sitting there without his helmet, that was just cool. And it was like, he's kind of stuck in this situation that I know he doesn't want to be in. And then they're both trapped because it's like, oh, we need to get out of here as fast as we possibly can. So then they start going through and Bill Burr, the guy is just like, the commander's just like, I don't know what to toast to, victory and this and that. And Bill Burr was like, what about Operation Cinder? And as soon as he said it, I was like, well, I guess that's it. It's about to be chaos because I knew it was going to be something bad. Like when he brought it up, I was like, this is going to be a happy moment right now. So for anyone who doesn't know, I think Battlefront 2, you can look up videos of that on YouTube. That's Operation Cinder. It was literally right after Return of the Jedi happens, they did Operation Cinder. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's that operation. That could be a different one, actually, now that I think about it. Maybe that was I don't know. They've done a couple of crazy Hellstorm type attacks, but I feel like Operation Cinder is the one that's in Battlefront 2. I could be wrong, though. But either way, it was this crazy mission. And so it was like, yeah, I worked on that. And then Bill Burr was like, yeah, no, I lost a bunch of people. And it was like, well, it's, it's good for them or whatever. It's like, well, it's not good for the bunch of people I lost and the innocent people trying to protect their family. And you just see him getting pissed off. And the commander's just like, yeah, eventually, we'll rule this and they'll, welcome us back with open arms. And Jin's just kind of looking at him like, please don't, please don't do this. Please, let's just have a conversation, have this crappy drink, and we'll just get up and we'll walk, we'll just walk out of here. And the dude's just running his mouth, and Bill Burr's he literally looked like he was about to cry. And it was just like, And he just pulled a blaster on him and just killed him right at the table. And then it's just they look at each other, which I love that scene. It's just and then I love right after, it's just and he just looks over his shoulder, and the dude's just standing in the back with a cup on a tray, he just shot that guy. Everyone's just kind of frozen for a second, and then it's okay, time to blast our way out of here. So I like how it happened. Like I said, I wish it lasted a little longer where they had to go through a little bit more to escape instead of being able to hop out the window and just scale up the building, which is still cool. But I would have liked if it lasted just a little bit longer. But it was still a cool scene, and that part I did really enjoy. Him taking off his helmet, the whole scene of them leading up to that shoot, and the actual ending of them scaling the building. That I really did enjoy. I thought it was really good. And the tension of that, just how long they were going to be in that situation without getting out of it. And I figured it was going to go wrong. So, the question was still there, but for me, I was kind of it's going to go wrong. I was there's no way that this is going to actually be calm and work out. And of course, just Jin knew as soon as the conversation went to the operation, it was just please don't. And it was just automatic, this is about to fail. But I love that scene. So that ending, I actually thought was really fun. I really wish that first fight sequence just gave me that same level. I wouldn't expect any true tension of how is it going to play out, because it was a very obvious we're going to try to rob you and blow up this thing, and then he's fighting. So it was obvious, story wise, it was clear. But if it just looked better, if it felt more entertaining and stuff, I would have liked it a lot more. But that tension at the end, I absolutely loved. I thought it was that last segment I thought was really, really good. So I enjoyed that. And then of course, they're climbing up the ship. That was pretty much on par for what I was expecting. They went out, they shot some people as they went up. They had their sniper support, and then Boba came in, and they hopped on the ship, and the TIE fighters come in, which I thought was super cool. Because I was like, oh man, the Slave One versus TIE fighters, that's epic. And he dropped my favorite bombs ever. He dropped the bombs on them from Attack of the Clones that blow up but have no sound effect, and then they go and they shoot out the blue wave. I love those things. I think of that all the time. I'm that sound effect is just really, really good. And I was That's so cool. That's so cool. And he pulled a Jango Fett. Like his, I think he was in the ship during that scene in Attack of the Clones where Jango was running from Obi-Wan and he was dropping those bombs. I'm pretty sure Boba Fett was actually in the ship with him during that fight scene. And I loved it. I was like, like as soon as the back opened up, I was like, he's about to drop the bomb, and he does it, and like the sound effect was amazing, and I was like, that's super cool. I could have sworn the bombs were blue though, so it was weird that it was yellow. Because I remember the bombs being blue, and then of course when they blew up, that's why the wave was blue. It made sense, but they were yellow for some reason. But either way, the wave was blue, and the sound effect was there, and I was like, that's all that matters to me. So I love that. I was super happy to see that. I was like, I can't believe they dropped the bomb. That was a huge callback for me because I always love that sound effect. So that was great. Also, Boba's armor, totally classic. Like he cleaned it up, and it was so messed up. I'm like, and when he showed up in this episode, I was like, I'm pretty sure it was more than like some scuffed paint, but I guess not. I guess that was it. It was just dingy and scuffed up, and it was just like boom, paint job, and it just looks classic. So I was like, okay, it's not like I'm gonna hate on it, but I thought it looked worse than it was, I guess. And it was like, no, I just need a paint job, a little, buff that right out, and everything's good to go. So I loved it. I was like, it's super cool to see him, and it's like the vibrant version of his outfit. I think it's actually more vibrant now than it actually even was in the original series, which could probably be due to the aspect of film more than the actual how the costume looked. But I felt like it looked dingier even in the original stuff compared to like how clean it looked in this episode, which I don't mind because it still gives it a different feeling because it's not as muted. It really is very vibrant. It kind of feels like it does when you see him like in the comics and stuff where it's the vibrant colors. And in the movie, it felt like it was a little bit more toned down compared to this version of it. But like I said, that could genuinely be because of film and just me kind of thinking back on how it used to look compared to what it actually looked like. That's just because of how they filmed it, and now you can have high definition stuff and you see everything basically like you're standing right in front of it. So that could be it could genuinely just look better than it did in the movies. But either way, I thought that was a nice touch because I just assumed he was going to be in the armor, but they're like, nah, he spiffed himself up, he looks good, everything's fine. So I was like, that's pretty sick. So there was stuff in this episode that's definitely cool. Like, that's just cool to see the costume look better. He dropped the bomb, which was great. Jin taking off his helmet was a really amazing sequence for the episode. And then, like, the actual, I can't really say, the drink scene, if you will. But that was basically just a leading up to chaos. And that's what that really was. It wasn't a drink scene. That was like, how soon will this go wrong scene? Because you knew it was going bad. But I did enjoy the ending. The ending I definitely thought was really fun. And then, of course, they have the schematics. They take off. They blow up the base. So they actually allow Bill Burr's character to leave because, he ended up blowing up the base and was like, I got to sleep better at night. Like, he hates the Empire. Like, he's mad that he was a part of that, which I thought was cool. And, they kind of realized that. Like, Kara's like, huh. Like, he didn't have to do that if he didn't want to. And she's just like, this dude's a dick. But maybe he's not actually a bad guy. Like, maybe he truly has learned his ways. And so they're like, it's a shame he died. And so he's just like, so I can go? Because I will. And so, he takes off and they just let him go do his thing. So he might show up, in season 3 and he'll actually be friends with them instead of being like, oh, crap, I don't like you guys. So that's cool. Bill Burr can easily return. I wasn't sure that he was going to live. I'll say that. I'm like, the Mandalorian, he's going to live. Bill Burr is famous, sure, and people like him. But in context of the story, he's just another dude. Like, I don't know if he's going to make it out of, like, this actual shootout. But he ends up being fine. So he's going to go off and do his own thing. They have their coordinates now. And I would assume they're just shooting straight for Moff Gideon. Like, they send him the message. He flips his words on him. And I was like, yep, he's going to get his baby boy. And he's coming to kill you. So that's what we have to wait for in this next episode. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm going to be doing a reaction for the Season 2 finale. I missed my opportunity with the last one, and I will not make that mistake again. I don't know who's showing up, but everybody's on the same page. Like, some Jedi is showing up, and I know they will because Moff Gideon is supposed to fight someone with a lightsaber. So if they do bring back Ahsoka, I think everyone will be fine with that. But a lot of people are expecting, like, a different character, and it's just hard to tell. It's like, they could do Cal Kestis. I mentioned before, I highly doubt they'll pull that move. I would love it, and I would lose my effing mind if they're like, yep, we brought Cal Kestis back from the video games, and, it's an older version of him. But they could do that. Insane, everyone's favorite crazy theory, Mace Windu. If that happens, I just don't know. But we shall see. We shall see what happens. But all in all, it was an okay episode. I really did enjoy the ending, but it took a minute to lead up to that. And this was actually a long episode. I think it was like it was only like 38 minutes. So it was a shorter episode still, but it didn't feel like they did enough with it. Like every other short episode, I felt like had a lot in it. Like I think episode 3 when Bo-Katan showed up, at that point, that was our shortest episode. It was genuinely like almost. I think that one barely hit 30 minutes. Like actually counting the credits, I think it barely even hit 30 minutes. But it was jam packed full of some of like the best action of the best action, at least up to at that point. It was the best action that we had in the season, and it was one of the best scenes that we'd had in the entire series, action wise. So that whole episode, I was just like, all right, every little moment the Mandalorians drop in either to help him or they're taking over that ship, all of it was utterly amazing. And I felt like every time it was a shorter episode, they did something so good that I felt like, I was like, okay, it was shorter. Would love for it to have been longer. Every episode I want to be an hour long. But this is like one of the few episodes where I'm like, I feel like it could have been longer and I would have enjoyed it more. Like normally when it's like it's a shorter episode, I'm like, I loved it so much I didn't even notice that it was that short of an episode. And this one, I actually noticed how long it was, and not in a good way. Like it was one of those weird things. Like it felt like well, I guess it was still only like 38 minutes, so probably 32 minutes because the end credits are like a minute and a half long, if not more than that. So it's like 2 or 3 minutes of credits. So it was probably like 36 minutes or something like that. And it's just like, it just didn't really capture me. Like literally, like the whole first half, like cool stuff was happening. Where it was like, oh, there's this cool little moment, or they make this little joke, like when he first saw Boba, was like, for a second I thought you were this other guy. Like little jokes and things like that, like simple stuff. But it was just like, okay, conversation. Yeah, that was cool. That was nice, him having to switch the outfit and stuff like that and kind of make these changes to go get Grogu. Definitely great. Like, for sure, without a doubt, like 100%, literally pivotal moments in the series. Like him deciding this is important enough to disregard, my creed. That's like a huge deal. Like series wise, that's one of the most important things that could possibly happen. But still, the episode as a whole is just like like a long fight sequence too. And the whole thing, I was just like, I'm not really getting much out of this. And it's a long fight sequence, and that's kind of weird when you have a long fight sequence and you just feel like I'm not getting much. So that that's kind of bad for the action when it's a long sequence and I'm still just like, I'm not feeling it. But like I said, the second half, the element, story wise of that, and Bill Burr's decision to, or his character's decision to shoot the Imperial commander, at the table because he was so upset at the things that he was a part of, and recognizing how stupid of a decision it was to help the Empire and watch them not only kill a bunch of his own people, but kill a bunch of innocent people and stuff like that. So I like what they did story wise, specifically for the characters. And that's the thing, is like the characters' journeys are great in this episode, but it's surrounded by like this really meh episode because it oddly enough, they could like cut some stuff and I think it would have been a better episode, which makes no sense because it was already so short. But I'm like, honestly, if they like just, I don't know, I feel like more dialogue actually would have helped the episode. Less of the fighting, or better fighting would have helped it. But I think that was really what did it, because I was already like, oh man, I'm not like amped, and nothing exciting, like, truly exciting was happening even in the first couple minutes, because it was like, all right, we went to get him and now we're going to the planet, and they were just talking about their plan. And I was like, it's feeling like, it's an episode. That's how it felt. And then I was like, but so did the Siege episode at first. And then that became utterly amazing. So that's kind of what I was hoping for. I was like, so was that first episode, because I'm like, that came after Bo-Katan. I'm like, we're getting Bo-Katan and then 2 episodes of Ahsoka. So in between, I was like, oh, it's going to be man. And it started off simple enough, but that became an amazing episode. And I was hoping that that's where we were going with this, because I was like, I doubted every week. And I'm like, well, this, of course, the week I give up doubting, I was like, I don't know. I was just like, I have faith. And then this was the episode where I was just like, could have been better. So that's how I feel. Like I said, I still enjoyed it. And without a doubt, because of what Jin did, and even Bill Burr's character, like the moments that he had, amazing character moments for sure, that I genuinely think are like the standout points of the episode. But all in all, it was just like, it was an okay. I still give it, like, I would personally say I'd give this episode like a 7, because genuinely I feel like it was the whole first half. Like until they got into the base, I was kind of just like meh for like genuinely the whole episode. It was cool to watch, and like I said, there were some moments here and there, like, oh yes, the switch, the costume, the conversation, it was good enough, but it was nothing like, holy crap, that's cool. It was just like, okay, that was nice. And then the fight scene was just like, okay, it's happening. And that was really it. So I was kind of worried that I was just gonna like not like anything in the episode. But the second half, once they get into the base, I was like, okay, these are pivotal character moments, and I really enjoyed that. So definitely picked up in the end, but still, it was like the whole first half of the episode, I was just kind of like, I don't really like this episode that much. Nothing's really grabbing me. So picked itself up, but still lost me a lot. Lost me a lot in that first half. But I would love to know your thoughts on it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Obviously, one episode to go, season 2 finale. I'm gonna do a reaction for it, and I'm excited to see what happens. But I would love to know your predictions on who's gonna show up, who's gonna live, who's gonna die. I don't think they'll kill off any of the heroes, least of all, the Mandalorian and Grogu. But I would really hope they don't kill off Cara Dune's character either. I don't want Fennec to go, but that's only because I like Ming-Na Wen, if I'm being totally honest. So it's super biased just because I really like that actress. But Cara Dune's character, I actually really enjoy as a character. Fennec's character, she's just an assassin. Like, she hasn't really done much to be like, oh, I really like her character. She just owes a debt to Boba Fett. And then they're like, we screwed up, so we owe a debt to you. So she's the one where it's like, I'm sorry, but if somebody has to go, it's got to be her character, because I'm not going to be like, kill Boba Fett. So that's not happening. You can't kill the main character. They can't kill Cara Dune. She may or may not also end up being in one of the new shows. They have the Rangers of the New Republic or whatever is one of the new shows they announced. So she might be involved in that anyway. So I'm like, there's 4 people, and there's one character who's not classic or main at this point, and I'm like, she might die. So we'll see what happens. And then also the whole crazy Jedi thing. Who's going to show up? Is Ahsoka coming back? Is somebody new going to pop up? Lots of possibilities, but I'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode. And like I said, definitely want to know your predictions and hopes, of course, for the Season 2 finale. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.